Welcome. I'm Dr. Caroline Heldman, the Executive Director of the Representation Project. We are a gender justice organization founded by Jennifer Siebel Newsom, and we use impact filmmaking to challenge damaging gender norms and stereotypes. And a big part of our work is busting myths, and we are running a campaign, the End Rape campaign, to bust a lot of myths about sexual violence that are commonly held in our culture. And we are doing this through a series of expert interviews featuring folks who are experts in sexual violence prevention, from survivors to professors to researchers to activists. I just want to give a trigger or activation warning that this content will be about sexual violence. So please know that as we head into it. And I am so excited today to be with three of the best people on the planet. So Lili Bernard, Jessica Barth, and Dr. Patricia Esparza are here today. They are all incredible survivor activists, and I want to jump into the panel. But first, let me read their bios. I'm going to read a little quickly because these are very impressive humans, and there are three of them, and there's a lot to read. So Lili Bernard. Lili is a Cuban-born, Los Angeles-based visual artist and actor. She has exhibited her artwork in numerous galleries and institutions. Her work examines issues of trauma born of sexism and racism, both past and present. As an actress and member of SAG-AFTRA, Lili guest starred in the last season of The Cosby Show as the zany and very pregnant Mrs. Minifield. On Seinfeld, she played Kramer's Black girlfriend, Anna. She co-starred in the Stephen King CBS TV series Golden Years and played the female lead in the BBC film Murder in Oakland, opposite Ving Rhames and Eric LaSalle. In the theater, Lili has performed extensively in New York, off-Broadway, and also in Los Angeles. So she is a multi-talented artist and performer. She is also the mother of 6 children, and she's an independent curator, a longtime arts activist, and community organizer. Lili created and ran Habla, the Harvesting Asian Black Latina Artists, in order to promote and provide platforms for underrepresented artists in Los Angeles. And she had an epiphany that Black artists were the most marginalized of the group. So she founded and organized Baila, the Black Artists in Los Angeles, a current movement aimed at building bridges of access for Black artists in the mainstream art world. Lili graduated high school from the American School in Japan, where she spent 11th and 12th grade, and she attended New Jersey public schools from kindergarten through 10th grade. She did her undergraduate work at Cornell University and City University of New York, earning a BA in German, and she received her MFA from the Otis College of Arts and Design in 2014. So that is our first panelist, Lili Bernard. Let me jump to our second panelist, Jessica Barth. She is another survivor activist expert who is best known for her leading roles in the movies Ted and Ted 2. You may have seen those. She began her career in the Philadelphia theater scene as a young girl, which helped her to a prestigious apprenticeship at Vassar College in association with New York Stage and Film. It was there that she honed her craft before deciding to go to LA to pursue a career in film and television. And during her years in LA, she appeared and starred in numerous plays, commercials, television shows, and films. Jessica graduated with a degree in theater arts and creative writing and has enjoyed writing short films, plays, a screenplay, and a pilot, which she will produce and direct in 2023. Go, Jessica. Back in 2017, Jessica was among the first voices to speak out about her experiences of sexual harassment she endured from Harvey Weinstein and assault in the entertainment industry. And she is the founder of Voices in Action, a nonprofit organization that has been supporting survivors of sexual assault within the entertainment industry since the wake of Me Too. She is the CEO of Voices in Action, and it's an incredible organization that works to create tools for safety across the entertainment industry for all genders. And last but certainly not least, Dr. Patricia Esparza. She is a compliance administrator for a reentry program in California, and she is also a clinical psychologist. She was a former deputy head of psychology at Webster University in Geneva, Switzerland, and a consultant for the Department of Mental Health and Substance Abuse of the World Health Organization. Patricia grew up in rural Mexico and Santa Ana, California. She attended Phillips Exeter Academy in Exeter, New Hampshire, and graduated from Pomona College in Claremont with a major in psychology. She earned a master's and doctorate degree in clinical psychology from DePaul University in Chicago. So I know you all very well, and it, again, just an honor and a privilege to be talking with you today.
Same.
So, oh, sorry, Jessica, stepping on you.
No, I just said same. It's just an honor to be amongst all of you.
Yeah, we have been in the trenches, right? We have been in the trenches because being a public survivor is by definition being in the trenches. And however much you want to share about your stories, we'll hop into that in a moment. But just know, folks, if you want to know why they're public survivors, just Google them. If you want to know their backstory or more about their stories, because our focus is mostly going to be on the activist side. But with that said, you've all suffered terrible traumas. Let's jump into this first question. But you've turned that pain into triumph and passionate activism, right? All of you doing different forms of activism. So can you tell us about your respective paths to survivor advocacy? Let's start with you, Lili. What's your path to survivor advocacy?
It really started with you, Caroline. As a Cosby survivor, I was really terrified to go public. And our mutual friend, Roger Gwenvor Smith, said, "You've got to meet Caroline Heldman." And I said, the only reason I would go public, because I knew that I was barred by the statutes of limitation to seek any kind of justice, would be if my speaking out could help change laws, could help empower others. So you at the time were working on the campaign End Rape SOL to abolish the statute of limitations on rape prosecution. So I joined you in that campaign, and that's really what started me all. And then from there, Caroline just kind of, we just did so many things. We went on to change so many other laws, and really, I'm really grateful to be part of what I consider this army. In your new book, right, The Sexy Lie, and Caroline's preface, she talks about there being a war on women's bodies. And I consider us as just being part of the army of that war against rape. And that our goals, of course, are, what are our goals? Our goals are, of course, holding the rapists and predators accountable. Our goals are, of course, empowering other survivors to speak out, and then making our communities safer. And the weapons that we have, that we carry in this war against rape, are really two: truth and tenacity.
And you have both of those in spades. How about you, Jessica? Tell us about your journey to becoming a public survivor, not beyond that, right, a survivor advocate.
Well, I moved from Philadelphia to Los Angeles to act and write and direct. And when I was assaulted, that kind of threw a wrench in those plans and my dreams, kind of interfered with my acting. It was really taking off, and that assault really stopped everything. So I didn't plan on being an activist when I came out here, but I really feel like it's something that I was born to do, because I feel like I'm at a place now in my life where I do have the strength to speak for other survivors, and I do have the tenacity to keep going, because this is a very uphill battle. How I really started with it was with Ronan Farrow's article about Harvey Weinstein in the New Yorker. I gave my name about a time when he harassed me. And from there, I started an email that was just whoisyourharvey@gmail. And I wrote a blog, and I invited other victims to share their stories. And if they named the same perpetrator, I would alert them. And the reason I did that was because seeing all of these women come forward saying, "Me too, me too, me too," I realized that there's safety in numbers, there's strength in numbers, and there had been such a culture of silence previously. But if you knew you weren't alone, if you knew you weren't the only victim, it would help you come forward. And I just thought that we needed a tool like this. And from there, that was a very successful email campaign. And from there, I founded Voices in Action, which also has that documentation platform. Serial or sexual offenders tend to be serial offenders because there is very little accountability, because we are silent. So my goal is for people to use their voice, and I try to give them resources and help them through the process and give them their options of what they can do after an assault.
Wonderful work. And Voices in Action, if you want to check out Jessica's organization, it's really powerful. How about you, Dr. Esparza? What is your journey or your path to survivor advocacy and activism?
Thank you, Dr. Hellman. For me, it just like Lily, it started also with you. But I will start with this. For me, the sexual violence that I experienced happened more than 20 years ago, but it would be another 20 years or more before I could actually come out as a public survivor, because we know that sexual violence changes the entire fabric of your life. And so, like many survivors, I tried to shove it away. I tried to put it away. I tried to really like stuff it somewhere where I didn't have to deal with it. But eventually you do have to face it. And for me, as a survivor, I was criminalized by the criminal legal system. And I was facing many years in prison because of the trauma that I didn't deal with. And thankfully, I had a group of survivors that you actually brought to me, and you were able to create a group of people that came forward and said, we believe Dr. Esparza, we believe in her, at the same time that the criminal legal system was trying to validate my story, discredit my story, and really paint me as the person that I was not. And so while I was in prison, I realized that many of the women were just like me. They are moms who care very much for their children, and they are sexual violence survivors. Statistics show that as many as 8 out of 10 women in prison are sexual survivors, sexual violence survivors. And so for me, coming out 5 years ago, there was no option. I knew that I had to give back what was given to me. I knew that I had to also advocate for the women that are still there, or the women that are coming out and are not getting the resources. So I have joined a coalition of women prisoners that is a statewide coalition that brings different organizations together. And what we're trying to do is change the California Penal Code so that ambitious prosecutors don't use these harsh sentences and these laws to criminalize sexual violence survivors. I'm also working with professionals who work with women who are in the system or are coming out of the system, and help them through trauma trainings so that they can see the women for what they are, survivors of trauma, also in recovery, many of them, and they are able to see them as human beings and be able to change things as we tackle those two fronts, the legal reform as well as trauma-informed trainings for specific professions.
Thank you. And thank you all for your work. You're doing such different and important work, right? So Patty, you're working with a prison program. Jessica, you're working in the entertainment industry. And of course, you're doing a lot outside of that as well. And Lili, you're using art and activism, and you're working on legislation. And also you're still very active in lawsuits against Bill Cosby. You've all interacted with the justice system as survivors and as public survivors. So talk to me about the shortcomings of law enforcement, of prosecutors, your entire experience. Like tell us where things went wrong, and maybe not necessarily, if you want to go beyond your own experience, what you've witnessed with survivors more generally who try to seek justice with our law enforcement and our justice system. Lili, why don't we start with you?
Yeah, well, a very big, important part of our activism is survivor advocacy, victims advocacy. And Caroline started this movement called Standing with Survivors, right? So we do go to the courtroom in numbers, and the three of us here, we've all gone together to support other survivors in sexual assault cases, whether it be criminal or civil. And when I went to my first case, I mean, I've sat as an audience member in trials of Bill Cosby, Harvey Weinstein, so many of them. Caroline can list them. But I was shocked at the mockery of the justice system that we have here in the United States. It was a 3-ring circus, and the defense attorneys, if they were actors, they would have won Oscars because they were just flinging rape myths at the jury as if they were ringmasters and totally manipulating them to believe these lies while victimizing, blaming, and shaming the victims on the stand. It was just an atrocity. And we, as publicly known survivors against a very powerful, once beloved predator, were also unfortunately subjected to horrible abuse outside of the courtroom. So I personally was attacked by shills physically, and as was Caroline, who sustained bruises trying to protect me. So it's shambles. It's a mockery. It's like embarrassing because, you know, I'm an Afro-Cuban immigrant. So my family came to this country on the American dream of justice and freedom. I think in my experience, the true pillars of justice for me has really been the media, you know, and but wow. Does that answer your question?
It does. I'm curious, can you give us a sense of, you know, what has been shocking in the courtroom in the Masterson trial or the Weinstein trial or whatever trials you happen to have witnessed? Like, what are some of the things that just blew you away?
Okay, there were so many things, but if I could just give you one example, it was during the victim impact statement in the Weinstein trial, right? So we were all sitting there just a few feet behind her. Who could you tell me? It was Jane Doe 1.
Jane Doe 1.
So first of all, she's not an actor, right? She's a dancer, to my understanding. And so she's here during her victim impact statement, sobbing with her young daughter next to her. Her daughter appeared to be a young adult, maybe late teens, early 20s, sobbing. And then the minute that she stops sobbing, the defense attorney, I'm paraphrasing, but says something to the akin like imploring the judge not to be manipulated by her tears because, you know, she's an actress and she knows how to turn on those tears, something like that. You know, I'm paraphrasing, but that of course caused her so much grief to hear her own tears, to hear her tears being weaponized against her and shamed even further after she just bore her poor soul with the most powerful vulnerability. And then she just like gasped even more and cried. It was like, have they no morals, no scruples? And then right after that, Weinstein came on himself talking as if he were his own attorney, and just he was already convicted of the sexual assault, and yet he continues to attack this victim. And I don't know how that can be allowed in the courtroom, that re-victimization. That has to change. There must be laws. The legal system really needs a whole overhaul. So yeah.
To follow up on that, Lili, I mean, I think we've all witnessed the fact that what's different about rape trials versus other types of crimes is that you're not actually trying to get to the bottom of it. He never gets put on the stand. He, meaning most perps, especially those in a courtroom or male, they don't put him on the stand. They don't ask what happened. It's all about a character assassination of the survivor. That actually is the case. That's the tactic. In what other crime is that the tactic? But Jessica, I would love to hear about your experiences. You've had more experiences with law enforcement you may want to talk about, but certainly also what you've witnessed in the courtroom.
Yeah, I mean, I've been dealing with this for over a decade, really, but most significantly in the past 6 years. And the one thing that I don't know that a lot of people understand is that, you know, a lot of people say, oh, they're lying, they're doing this for the money, they're doing this for their fame. One, there's no fame to be had. Nobody wants to Google their name and see their rapist next to their picture. Like that, there's no fame to be had. Two, the money, you better believe that a perpetrator should be sued, and because the only thing that they care about is their money. So absolutely, that is a fair form of justice. We have this idea in our heads that if we get hurt, if we get assaulted, we call the police come, they go and they grab the perpetrator out from his house, they put him in jail, and there's justice. That could not be further from the truth. And any public survivor, any survivor that chooses to report really deserves our admiration and support, because it is so beyond traumatic. It is dragged out, especially if you're going against somebody who has money or has power, that their defense attorneys are mobsters. They operate like that, and they will stretch this, they will delay, they will delay, they will delay, they will delay until they break the witnesses, the victims down. So where a lot of the times they say, I can't do this. It's been 6 years, 7 years, 8 years, 10 years. I can't do this anymore. I have a life. And it's so much different than what it was when I was assaulted. They bank on that. And so this process is beyond torturous and very, very difficult to sustain. And when you do, if you do, because prosecutors don't tend to take sexual assault cases at all, if you do get the opportunity to take the stand, you are bullied, you are treated as if you are the perpetrator, as if you did something wrong. It's a horrific experience. I witnessed it with you both by my side. I will tell you, the most awful thing that I ever heard was from a judge, and that judge said about a rape victim that she was outrageously drunk. She had 10 glasses of wine. Her dress was hiked up. Her behavior was outrageous, and I just don't find that kind of behavior credible for because she stayed the night at this, like, I can't get into the specifics, but he said, because of that, that's not how a rape victim would behave. And because of that, I don't find her credible. And this is after years and years and years and years of trying to get justice. You finally get there, and that's what you hear. I can't even imagine what she must have felt hearing those words. That broke my heart and actually made me question, why do we even do this? Why do we even do this? We get this far, and then we are seen as the perpetrators. We're seen as the one that have committed the crime. So that's just one that I've seen, but there's many.
Thank you, Jessica. And that was recently. So for folks who might be saying, oh, maybe, but it's changed since Me Too. No, that happened after Me Too in 2017 peaked. Patty, Dr. Esparza, tell us about what you have witnessed with the criminal justice system, courtrooms for survivors, how it's basically stacked against us, as Jessica and Lili have laid out.
Yeah, I definitely realized how the system uses fear to manipulate and justify its existence. It really imbues fear in every opportunity that it can. And for me, when I was charged with the murder of the person who raped me, as soon as that charge was placed on me, there was a press release. It was me and everybody else that was charged along with that case. And so what they use is the media as a way to start their pressure campaign, which is different from what happens in Switzerland. In Switzerland, if somebody is charged, they can talk about the story, but they cannot disclose the person's identity. They can't disclose identifying information, where they work and who they are. And so for me, it was such a surprise to see that I was fighting for my freedom. I was fighting to prove my innocence. I was trying to prove so many things about who I was, but there was this public narrative already out there that I just couldn't beat. And it's a huge system. It's a system of power that I just couldn't possibly tackle on my own. And I wouldn't have survived that experience if I hadn't had you and the activists that came to my help, Caroline. So I realized how they control the narrative. They control how they distance us from the general population. They want to dehumanize us, other us, so that they can then justify how they treat us. They can justify for everybody who props up the criminal justice system. They can justify those who work in there, how they actually continue to treat us. When I was in jail for a couple of years before I was sentenced to then go to prison, and my lawyer asked for my daughter to spend a few minutes with me because for all those years, 2.5 years, I would see her through the plexiglass and I wasn't able to touch her. And she was a 4-year-old. I wasn't able to hold her or hug her. And so I was going to be transferred somewhere else and she was going to go back to France. So I wasn't going to be able to see her for a while. And so we just wanted those few minutes for me to be able to hold her behind the courtroom. And the guard who shackled me and was escorting me out into the courtroom looked over at me with this expression of indignation. Like, I've never seen this before. What makes you so special? And I looked at him and I said, this is my daughter. She needs me. She is the one who is special. And what astounded me was just how they really don't want you to be a human being in their eyes. They want you to be something that they can humiliate or somebody that deserves that punishment. They don't realize how putting people away, women away like that, really breaks the family and shatters the children that are part of that unit. So
Thank you.
I was also called a liar. Everything that the prosecutor said to the media, everything that comes out of you wouldn't call me doctor. Everything that comes out of Esparza's mouth is a lie, even though the rape itself was verified by a third person.
Yeah, it's a complicated case, but if this has piqued your interest, you should definitely look online to see about the case. So you will see the absolute travesty of justice that happened in that case. So just to reiterate, we have witnessed things in the courtroom that I don't think people would believe unless they were there, because we watch so many TV shows where we think we know how it works. And I'm just thinking back of like the George Tyndall case. Remember the USC doctor who was found guilty, multiple counts of rape. His defense attorney, and he's a gynecologist, and he was using his position and abusing his position. And remember, we're sitting in the courtroom and his defense attorney said, who comes to a gynecology appointment in heels? And we were aghast, like, I don't know, half of working women in LA, like, yeah, but it's just this idea, right, that she was asking for it based upon what she was wearing. And that was in 2022. These rape myths are everywhere in the courtroom, right? I'm gonna go off script for just one moment and ask you each to briefly talk about what you wish, what you would tell yourself when you started this journey, what you wish you had known at the start. What would you say to yourself having just started the journey? And the journey I'm talking about is the journey of being public about your survivorship, right? It's the journey of being public. Lili, what would you tell your younger self?
Go Greystone on all the narcissists and naysayers who are trying to silence you, because they're only doing that for their own self-interest, right? So, and to just don't pay attention to the negativity and to seek out survivors as yourself, because through that survivor sisterhood, through that silver lining of the trauma, there is so much empowerment, there's so much comfort. And then we do transform our trauma for political power. You know, we've changed laws. So it's, and that there's just really a lot of strength in, sorry, the kitten, your kitten just grabbed my ankle with her little baby kitten claws. He's right there by my feet. Sorry, stray kitten, 6 weeks. Yeah, that there's strength in your vulnerability, and that this too shall pass. You know, that PTSD is a bitch, you know, but that you're going to get through it, and to hang on to the survivor siblinghood for strength.
Yes. How about you, Jessica? What would you tell yourself embarking on this?
That is a really great question. Part of me honestly wants to say that I would say, shut up. Keep it.
Don't do it. Yeah.
Yeah. Part of me wants to say that it's not worth it. It cost me my career. It's cost me time with my family. It's cost a lot. So if I could do it all over again, would I do it? I would have to say yes, because I know I've heard from so many survivors that I've supported, and wouldn't maybe have had that support if I wasn't doing the work that I'm doing. And together we are able to do so much, change laws, advocate for survivors, be there for them. And you're right, Lily, that sisterhood really is powerful. It's not at all what I thought my life was going to look like, but I'm happy that I've come to a place where I had the strength to keep doing this work, because it's so needed. It's so lacking. So I would just say this is going to be a lifelong journey. This is not going to be a year or two or a little bit of your life. This is going to be a part of who you are. So buckle up, Buttercup.
That's great. Yes. Yes. How about you, Patricia?
I would say that, yes, in terms of practical guidance, reach out to people who have done this already before you embark on that public journey, so that you have all the tools, all the resources, you have an army of people ready, waiting to help you, because it will be difficult, but it will be worth it. And therapy helps, but activism heals. Like, that's really how I have come to understand it, because it's that collective coming together of breaking down those walls of silence that can make it happen for you. So, and that you are not alone. And I would also do it again, just like Jessica said and Lily.
Yes. Okay. One last question for the panel, and please, folks who are in the audience, get your questions in. The Q&A will go as long as you would like to take it. But one last question. What is one thing you wish people knew about sexual violence? What is one thing, whether it's a myth or something that people just don't think much about? What is one big thing you wish people knew? Lily, we'll start with you.
That when a sexual assault survivor experiences flashbacks, that it's, for me and the survivor sisters with whom I've spoken, we are actually physically sensing the same violent contact that we had during that time. And so I would encourage the public, for example, to be privy to that, so that when we're trying to go about our days, having a happy day, it's not okay for them to just say, hey, I saw you on the news, you've got a lawsuit against Cosby, because all of a sudden, it brings you right back to the moment, and then you feel the pain. So I would encourage people not to bring up the subject of one's sexual assault. If you have a friend or a family member who is a survivor, let them talk about it if they want to. That's what I
Great
would say.
advice. Yes. Thank you, Lily. How about you, Jessica?
I would say it's kind of twofold, but I would say the most important thing about this problem in our country and the world is we have to prevent it from happening to begin with. So it has to start with prevention and awareness and education, because once it happens, you're set on this path that you have to deal with pretty much for the rest of your life. So the focus has to be on prevention, education, and awareness. It takes so long, if ever, to get any kind of justice. And then the other part would be that if you do see someone in the media, because the media has been our most powerful tool in the past couple of years, but those stories are vetted. They are vetted heavily, the lawyers, legal teams, corroboration. If that is printed in a reputable medium, then 99.9% chance those victims are telling the truth, and they're not doing it for fame, and they're not doing it for money. They're doing it to help other survivors. And then yeah, in the court system, if you get there, prosecutors do not take these cases. They don't think that they can win. It's maybe starting to change a little bit, but not at all. There's so many victims out there that their case will never see the light of day. So really prevention and awareness and not having it happen to begin with.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Jessica. Dr. Esparza.
That as much as we talk about sexual violence, there isn't enough talk within families. Sexual violence gets transmitted intergenerationally because of the silence. If you break the silence, you will be helping the next generation. You'll be helping your nieces, your daughters, your cousins, so that they can step into a world that is safe for them. So we are essentially the shields taking the blows so that they can come forward in a place that feels safe for them. So that's what I'm hoping, that the silence gets broken within families. It's okay. It's okay to talk about that person who harmed you. You're not betraying them. You're not betraying the family. You are actually stepping out into the fore for those that can't fend for themselves.
And you're putting an end to that intergenerational trauma, right? I mean,
Yes.
yeah, so courageous. I just put a fact sheet, our rape myths fact sheet from our End Rape campaign that really takes apart a lot of the myths that have come up in this discussion. The myth that false rape accusations are common, that stranger rape is the only real rape, that if you don't fight back, it wasn't rape. Those sorts of rape myths come up often in the trials. I mean, that's basically, this is the playbook for defense attorneys. This is what they do. And the reason it's so effective is because juries are steeped in rape myths. And the reason that prosecutors don't take these cases is because they know that even though they know what happened and they have a lot of evidence, they know that the jury is steeped in rape myths. So a big part of our campaign is to really raise awareness about these myths. Let's jump right into Q&A. Daryl, thank you for your question. Daryl says, thank you all for being here and speaking publicly. Since we know so many folks don't or can't speak out, it is really powerful to hear about your work and advocacy. I wanted to know if you could share the things you do to maintain a culture of care amongst other activists you work with, and how you maintain strength in the face of all the obstacles you've spoken about today. Should we go in the standard order, Lili?
Sure. That's a beautiful interpersonal dynamic that we share as survivors when we do stand in support with other survivors at trials. For example, when I went to the Cosby 2 trials, the first one, which ended in as a hung verdict, and then the retrial, which found him guilty on 3 counts, and then the sentencing hearing, I went as an audience member, but it was triggering for me, right? Because, you know, Caroline was there with me every day, and sometimes Cosby passed by me just inches from me, and I could smell his tobacco breath and his perspiration. And there were times when I and other Cosby survivors, we began dissociating and sobbing in flashbacks at the courthouse. And Caroline and other survivors knew what to do because they themselves are survivors and they've gone through their own personal healing journey. They know how to bring us back to the present. So Caroline knew that an orange, for example, would help me come right back to 2018 because I was stuck in the 1990s, and she took me outside and we went for a walk, and then all of a sudden she saw me getting hysterical again. Why? Because the brownstones we were passing by looked just like Bill Cosby's brownstone. So she had me look down or whatever, but she used these real tools to really help me and other Cosby survivors get out of our flashback, get out of our dissociation and come back to the present. So it's that kind of really interpersonal healing dynamic that you just can't get from any other place.
Agreed. And sitting in the courtroom when things are triggering, holding hands with other survivors, you know, that the back, someone will start crying and there will be hands on the back, right? Making sure someone's okay. It's just a really powerful bond.
Yeah. And Caroline will go to me, Lili, look here, Lili, she like that. Lili, look here, Lili.
Yeah.
You're spiraling, look here. Just like that, you know?
Because it's a real thing. I mean, your brain is really taking you back to those places. Yes. Jessica, how do you maintain care for other survivors and for yourself in this?
I think activism is a huge part of my healing. The more discouraged I get with my own journey, the harder I go in support of other women. And I know we're making a difference. I know, I see it, I feel it, and that's healing for me. It's a way to take my power back because so much of it was stolen. And yeah, activism, I think you said it beautifully. What did you say? You said therapy was, what did you say? Therapy was something, but activism is healing.
Therapy helps, but activism heals.
Yeah, that was beautiful. That's how I feel.
Absolutely. And the bonds with other survivor activists or survivors. How about you, Dr. Esparza?
Those monthly touchdowns that we have, survivor get-togethers, they fill my soul. They really re-energize me. They make me feel that I'm not in this alone, because you go through your day-to-days and you're grappling with the demands of what you need to do to get your life together. But that time where we share a meal, we break bread together, we go for a hike, we go for a walk, that's very rejuvenating for people that know what it means to live this kind of public life is what we need.
Yeah. Getting together, commiserating, talking about things other than rape. Yay! Terrible gallows humor that develops with siblinghood.
Falling on our butts when we're roller skating.
So this is a follow-up question. So whoever, if any of you want to address this, what keeps you going on your darker days? How do you keep going? It's kind of the same question, but does anyone want to grab that?
I play with my children. Sorry, go Lily.
You go, girl, because go ahead, go, Jessica.
I play with my children because there are some really traumatic days, trauma-filled days, but I play with my kids. There's no way for me to get present more so than when you're just laughing and playing with your kids. So thank God for that.
Lili?
Same thing. I've got 6 children that I birthed in a 10-year span. And when I first came public, with regard to what Bill Cosby did to me, my youngest was 6 and now she's 15. And so my kids are all artists and they have lovely lives. So I just get absorbed and engrossed in what they're doing with their lives and their artwork and their accomplishments. And it just takes me away from my own personal trauma.
Anything to add, Dr. Esparza?
Oh, I snatched somebody's furry friend away for the day. Go take them for a walk or pet them or play with them. Yeah, pets have been my salvation. They really ground you and keep you in the present. You're worried about getting love, so I have lots to give.
And the theme here, right? You're all mothers. This is a great segue to another question here. Thank you all for your powerful testimonies. For those of you who are mothers, all of you, how has your experience changed the way you raise or prepare your children to face the cruelties of rape culture? Lili?
5 of my 6 children are men. So I raised them to be feminist and to know that an ally or an advocate or a bystander plays a critically important role in this fighting the war against rape. So that's, I think, one of the most important lessons, and that I can talk to my kids about what we're doing. And as Caroline knows, my children, even when they were young, attended our meetings, our activism meetings. They attended End Rape SOL meetings and they participated wholeheartedly in the protests and the organized whatever we did. And Caroline also, because my children are artists, Caroline, being an artist herself, knows the important role that art, that the power of the image holds in terms of moving people towards advocacy. Because when we change these laws, when we abolish the statute of limitations on rape prosecution, it's really because we were able to reach the hearts of the senators and the legislators to whom we were testifying. And we did this. I mean, Want to tell them about what we did, how we used art, Caroline, with the clocks and the war paint?
Yeah, or you could tell them. I mean, I could. So it's a time limit, right? It's an arbitrary time limit that you set, even if you have evidence. And so the statute of limitations was basically dragging down justice. And so we had Lady Justice, and we all had clocks. We went to the Goodwill, my favorite shopping place, and put clocks around on ropes, and we were being dragged by time, being dragged down. Did I capture it, Lily?
Yeah, you did. And so what I've done with my children is I've engaged them in the making of these art objects for the protest. When I went to the Cosby hearing, I did these luminary candles for each of the victims and painted these little wooden hearts. And so my children actually helped me prepare the art, make the posters for our protests, for our, our interventions. And so that's what I'd say.
Yeah. How about you, Jessica? How has this changed the way you parent?
Well, growing up, I would never have used the word rape. I would have never talked about sex with my parents ever. Before I decided to come out publicly, my oldest daughter was in middle school. And I asked her, I said, how do you feel about this? Because your friends will know, your friends will see my name. And she was very supportive. I don't know that she knew what she was getting into, but she was very supportive. And we have a very open dialogue. I mean, what we talk, it probably comes up, honestly, once a day about safety and prevention and awareness. So it's a very open topic in my house. And I can only hope and pray that open dialogue is another step towards keeping her safe. But she's come with me to these trials. You guys have met her. She's marched with me in the Women's March. So she's a little feminist and activist herself. So we'll see. My little ones are 10 and 6. So not talking about that now, but we are talking about consent. And I think this is really important, is I have a younger son and a younger daughter. And even if he grabs something from her, like a toy, I tell him, I say, no, you don't grab, you don't take, you ask. And if she says yes, then it's a yes. And if she says no, then it's a no. And that's it. If she says stop, that's stop. So I'm trying to work with them, teaching them what consent means. And my youngest daughter, they know that their body is sacred, their body is private. No means no. You talk to mommy about anything. So just having that open dialogue, I think, hopefully will lead us in the direction of safety.
Thank you for that advice, especially for parents who are watching. And Dr. Esparza, I want to take this opportunity, because you're a child psychologist, to ask you to put on your clinical psychology hat. What advice do you have for parents raising children in a rape culture?
I think what I've heard is fantastic, like really incorporating your children into activities that brings awareness without having a direct conversation. They really do absorb information and messages through kinesthetic, like doing things, involved in an art project or drawing, or having a conversation where they're actively using a medium to absorb that information, so that it doesn't feel like this is so, it is important and it is serious, but it doesn't have that kind of emotional tone to it. Because anything that has kind of a heavy emotional tone, people just in general, and especially when they're little, they may tune that off, like, oh, okay, there's mom worrying about me again. But it's really about, no, this is part of how we live our lives and how we do things. One thing that I wanted to mention is that coming from a Mexican family, it's very common where it's like uncle comes in who's not really your uncle and says, go give uncle a hug, or say goodbye and give them a kiss. And children, they never want to do that. Like, I don't know this person. Why? But then culturally, they're implicitly told that they have to do that. So with my daughter, I never asked her to kiss, even people that she knew, even her uncles. If she wanted to, she could. But if the uncles asked, then they would have to ask, but it wasn't a given. That's something that you have to give. And what I was trying to teach her is that her body is herself, is her own, and that she has to be giving consent, because then she understands the boundaries of her own physicality. She understands that even the smallest gesture of like giving a kiss or giving a hug is hers to give and not anybody's to take.
It's so important what you and Jessica are talking about, right? Which is teaching consent in ways that are not about sex, teaching bodily consent, teaching consent about getting someone from something from someone. I mean, just, yeah, if you want a culture shift, address the culture where that's not the norm. There are a couple of questions which are quick to answer. And let me just jump on this one. One question, is anyone able to show up to support survivors in court? Is that helpful? How does it work logistically? Anyone here could answer this question. I'll be quick about it. Yes, anybody can show up. They can't keep you out of the courtroom. The only way they can keep you out of the courtroom is if there's a really, really long line and they can't fit everybody in, and they might have a number system, which means, hey, show up early. But yep, you can go to in LA, the Clara Stoltz, you go to the federal courthouse, you walk in, you punch the number for the 9th floor if it's the Weinstein or Masterson or one of these high profile trials. And then you just go and you sit outside, and then they open it up to the public and you walk in. It's that simple in almost every courtroom. It's that simple, even for these high profile trials. So don't let your lack of knowledge about that keep you away. Yeah, Lily.
And then when you do get into the courtroom and you're sitting behind the victims and their families, and afterwards, when we're outside the court, they hug you and they weep with you in deep gratitude. That's when I realized, wow, this is like the most important part of our advocacy work, is just to be there and support them.
Absolutely. The power of that. And Jessica, you've done so much work around this too, and organizing people to get to courtrooms. And also, if you want to know when things are happening, when high profile trials are happening, you can follow any of us on social media, Voices in Action. There are a number of organizations also that put the word out in the Survivor Network. So one question, we have 2 questions left. One is for Jessica and Lili, and the other is for Patricia. So Jessica and Lili, with the Me Too movement and guilty verdicts we've seen recently, some of these powerful monsters in Hollywood are being held accountable. Do you feel like the film or TV industries are getting any safer for women actresses who are coming up now, Lili?
This is a really interesting question, because my son, three of my sons are professional actors in the Screen Actors Guild, and it was one of my sons who was actually recently sexually harassed on set. So I'm one of the founding members of the SAG-AFTRA Sexual Harassment Prevention Committee that was founded by Pamela Guest. And we talk about this issue, but it's not just women, it's children. And so we're trying to make, you know, the environment safer. But I'm going to hand it over to Jessica, because Jessica deals more intimately with that work. I'm going to hand that over to you.
I think there's more awareness around it. I think people honestly kind of get burnt out on the Me Too movement. It's just too much. They look at it a lot, that it's a rich actress, white girl movement. That's a lot of the stereotype with it. I've heard as feedback. But what that has enabled us to do is to have these groups like we have in SAG-AFTRA. And I think we are making some progress. I think that there will be real progress when we get women in more positions of power within the studios, and the studio heads, writers, just really getting women in positions of power. Until then, I don't think it's going to be a drastic shift, but I would say there's more awareness around it now. But it's still
such a male industry. I mean, Hollywood touts itself as being this kind of liberal bastion, but the hiring policies look like the 1950s. I mean, it is so real. And
you specialize in this work, the representation of women on, and we're still, in the rare times that we do get gigs, we're like the damsel in distress, you know, that's Hollywood is perpetuating that myth of women being objects.
Absolutely. Yep. Okay. Last question for you, Dr. Esparza. Again, calling upon both your personal experience, perhaps, and your clinical experience. Anonymous writes, thank you all so much for sharing your personal journeys. What would you say to someone who grew up in violence, but doesn't always remember every detail of it? So many seem to discredit this memory loss as well.
Oh, that is completely normal. It's absolutely your brain's way of protecting you. When we experience situations that are just so painful, your body goes on survival mode and your brain shuts off a lot of those details in order for you to be able to function, to be able to go through your day-to-days and really survive. So I honor that process as a way to say thank you, body, this is what you do, and brain, this is what you do to help me be here. And at the same time, do seek help. Do go to somebody that you have vetted. Please vet your professionals. Not every psychologist is trauma informed. Not every therapist has the proper training to help you with such a delicate process. Be kind to yourself. And you definitely have people out there that can help you both personally and professionally. So yeah, always reach out if you want specific recommendations, and I can direct you in the right kind of field.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you all so much for sharing your stories and your wisdom and guidance. And I know this is a strange thing, but it feels like this has been a really heavy hour. Of course, it has been, right? Given what we're talking about. Lili, is now the time for a kitten appearance, just a
Okay.
soul cleanser.
Here she comes. 1 second.
But for anyone who wants to stick around, we do have a 6-week-old kitten.
It's Caroline's new daughter.
Oh my
Oh
goodness. And what is her name, Lili?
Oh, well, my kids are calling her Puma, but Caroline's going to call her whatever she wants. Caroline gets her on Monday night because I have 3 other cats and 2 dogs. Otherwise, we'd keep her. She's literally the best kitten in the world.
Oh, kitten therapy right here at the Representation Project. Thank you all so much and have a wonderful rest of your day. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Caroline. Thank you, Lili. Thank you, Dr. Esparza.